Okay, so my name is Jonathan, and this is the Part-Time Creative Podcast. I like to talk to creatives, whether they're doing it full-time or if they work a regular job and go to school and they do something on the side. Very, very free-form. Just want to kind of get into everyone's different process. I have Lisi with me today.
How's it going?
Hello. Perfect. And really, I don't have anything set because you do a whole bunch of different things that I'm interested in, from your horseback riding and training, and then you also draw some great sketches and illustrations on the side. So there's not really one thing that I have to go into other than. Is there certain times? Talk to me about when you like to draw, when you like to do this horse thing, and what kind of gratification you get from either of those.
So the drawing actually kind of started from just a stress reliever because I had an anxiety about pens, which is something not serious. It didn't impact my life, but I was always nervous to use pens. And I had all these pens. So about my sophomore year of college, I was just like, you know what, I'm going to do little line drawings in the corner of my paper and, not assume that they're going to turn out to be anything and just kind of see how it feels. And I got really confident. And so then I just started doing, if I had a random concept that would come into my mind, I would just sketch it out with basic shapes and whatever. I've always been good at drawing with a reference, but it was always something I never had a style. So being able to sketch and not need an outcome, it not be something substantial like a portrait or of something that's real per se, was really a lot more digestible to me instead of trying to make it something perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that's something that everyone needs to kind of understand and really take to heart, is that the best way to be creative or really start anything is to do it without any judgment of the outcome and just let it be that free form, kind of almost childlike. I'm just going to have an adventure with this. It doesn't have to be perfect. I don't need to impress anyone with this. It's very interesting because I feel like a lot of creativity stems from some sort of anxiety or, trying to work out something because it's a form of meditation where you're just you're in the zone, you're doing whatever it is, and then your brain kind of goes on this autopilot where you kind of just let the different things of the day, they come and go, but really you're just kind of focusing on what's in front of you. I can't speak for really anything else, but I know that with photography specifically, which is what a lot of my creativity stems from, when we were doing film photography specifically, you would go out and you had the stress of setting everything up, and we definitely had an objective. But when we would end up shooting and then we go into the darkroom and we're specifically doing prints, is where you're forced to do this long process where you have to wash them, you have to do the light for a certain amount of time, you have to learn how to do dodging and burning, which is less light on more parts of the image and less on some of the other, and it really helped you get into that headspace where it's just it's going to be something at the end, but I don't really know where it is yet, and that's kind of an interesting zone where maybe it's good, maybe it's bad, but you're just kind of having to live with it right now.
So experimental.
Yeah. And
that's really interesting.
People are really worried about perfection and not being good enough, because I think that it's a human trait to look at someone who is the best at something and aspire to be that, and especially people that are naturally hard on themselves are going to say, well, I'm not there yet, I can't show this to anyone. It actually can't leave the privacy of whether it's your own room or just a college campus. No one else can see this because I know where the top of this thing is. I know that's a stressor for me, but if you can get into that space where it's just I know I'm not there, but I think that I'm adding my own voice to it, even if it's not fully refined yet, that's where creativity needs to be, because we can't stop at the first stumble or not getting good, because with anything with practice, I don't even know with creativity if it becomes perfect, but it becomes the refined version of whatever your thing is.
I agree. And it definitely, you develop a style through all of the trials and errors, and as long as you're doing it because you enjoy doing it, the satisfaction you get from other people's comments is just like the icing on top, whereas you're still on this like continuous journey of just figuring out what you like, what you don't like, what styles work best for you, and different ways to challenge yourself through that. And so it's pretty interesting, because every now and then I'll try to draw something like an animal or a person, and then I'll get frustrated and put it away and go back to just my random like lines and circles and just different visual like patterns.
Sure.
Is more of the right way to put it. But it's very like when I get into that headspace, it's almost as if it's just something I need to do. Like even if it's really fast on my homework in the corner.
Right.
So it is kind of a different something to work on. And I think it's good to challenge yourself, because you don't have to be good at something to enjoy doing it. And I think a lot of people are discouraged from drawing because they don't think they can.
Yeah.
Because they can't, they can only draw a stick figure. And it's like, okay, well, if you look at something and you see the basic shapes of it, you can draw all of those shapes and then add your own personality to the picture.
Absolutely. And I think that I've thought about this a lot, and it usually comes up during some sort of like physical activity where it kind of forces you into a meditative state, at least when you're doing things you've already done before, because it's just muscle memory, do it, pick up the thing, run, whatever, is that I wonder if more people, even that don't think that they're creative, need to find something that gets you into that headspace, because I think it's too easy to get into, I need to achieve this, go here, talk to this person. Like It becomes very much like checking all these boxes. And I think that's why meditation is important. But even for people that can't sit down or don't want to or haven't gotten into it yet, like you can reach a very similar space. I've done meditation, I've done a passionate art project, and they have very similar, like your brain kind of like flatlines and lets things come in and go. And I feel like it would be great for everyone to have a non-judgmental zone where they're just like, this is me. And you don't even have to show anyone, but there's something about like a non-critical way to produce your creativity that it deals with both negative and positive emotions. And I think that in a greater scheme of things, I would think it would be interesting if we got to see everyone's version of what they added to the world. Like if you got to look at someone towards the end of their life and you got to see all that they've done. What did they draw? What did they photograph? What did they take videos of? What songs did they write? What stories? And I don't think that any of those necessarily have to be good. Like generally, someone's going to be good at one of those things, or maybe they're more analytical or good at different things. You get to see, like, you're never going to have a great sculpture done by me, but you might have some great photographs, whereas it might be someone else where they do incredible metal or woodworking and they wouldn't have as good of, the photos or the drawing or whatever it ends up being. But I think it would be interesting to look at that person's work, because I think that there's similar strains throughout everything. You can see what they were drawn to. And I think that you don't know what you have to add to this world creatively until you go out and you try it. And I think it's a complete positive to give every one of those things a chance.
I agree. And something else to add to that is people don't realize somebody's value creatively really until they're gone. Because if you do have anxieties behind your creative outlet, you aren't going to want to show them to very many people. And especially like older generations, they just did that in private and they didn't need to tell people about it, and they didn't feel the pressure because that was just their outlet. And then when they pass and you find these artifacts of theirs, you're like, wow, I had no idea that they were such a good artist, or that they really liked to sculpt, or maybe they were into gardening, you know, or something where they felt like they were contributing.
I think we're too focused on what we would consider necessity, because if you think about, people want you to be in a good relationship, be physically healthy, be educated, all these other things. And so we start to take away value from things that might not have any value attached money-wise or with status or anything. Like, if your creativity is never going to bring you anything, then I feel like there either is judgment from someone that you care about their opinion, whether you like it or not, or you kind of internalized it and you think that there's pressure even when there's not. I think mine is kind of the latter. Mm-hmm. But we're so much more than we give ourselves credit for. And right. I think that you do it despite it, whether there's an actual critic in your life or if it's just in your head, to produce these things, even if they don't get you more money, if they don't get you attention, all these other things, because you're going to be pushed to do most of the other things in life, but no one's going to push you to do something that is fulfilling in that way, creatively, unless you're in a family of artists or if it's your actual job. But again, this is more for people that maybe only have it as a hobby. Like, I think that outlet is important, and that people stop at the first sign that they're not immediately good at it or what they would consider good at it, which is a real shame. Yeah,
and there's this perception that you have to be making enough money to support yourself on your creative aspect if that's what you choose to do. Mm-hmm. There's no compromise as far as, like, you know, when you tell somebody, oh, what do you do for a living? And you're like, okay, well, I'm a photographer.
Sure.
And maybe that's the aspect of your life and your financial status that you enjoy the most. So that's where you identify.
Yeah.
But they see that as, well, don't you have another job? Mm-hmm. Like, that's not really what you are. Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, well, there are many things that I do, and this is what eventually I would love people to see, that this is where my effort's at. Because I won't quit giving effort to this project, even if the income isn't as steady as your 9 to 5.
Yeah. I think that taking that chance on your creativity, when it can support you, even if it's not the money that you would either expect, or maybe you're at the beginning stages of it, maybe hey, go to the other end of this. What if it doesn't work out at all?
Yeah.
I think that you know, if
like,
that's
would you
your
still
choice,
do
then,
it?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
If that's in you and you want to try it, then try it safely. Make sure that you're not, you know, all of the other boxes are checked. We're very lightly going on to this. If you're going to make a major career move, make sure you're taking care of all the other things in the background. I wouldn't go and chase your dream if you have a mortgage and 3 kids and a lot of debt. But as far as we're considering here, going back to what you were mentioning about this person kind of saying, well, you're not really this, or you know,
you're
don't
not
you
this because you're not doing that.
Exactly. Don't you do another job, whatever. I think this goes deeper than creativity, but I think it affects creatives a lot, because whether we like it or not, the opinions of others, and mostly negative ones, because we really shake the good ones off, and this goes deeper into just personality in general, we're too attached to it. And I think that a lot of narcissism, or people trying to pick apart other people's lives, dissect it, tell them what's right and what's wrong, is actually coming from a deep-seated insecurity in them, that they haven't been introspective enough to say, why, like, I feel an irritation emotionally inside of me, so I think it must be what they're doing with their lives, instead of, hey, they're trying something, I never tried, I chose the safe path with the thing that I didn't like all the way through here, you deserve to go through the same thing.
Right.
And it's a shame, but I think that we have to go through these kind of challenges where you have to say, no, like, it's fine. Like, I don't have to be this. Sometimes you have to stand up for yourself and say, even if they say this isn't good enough, it's like, what is good enough?
Right.
You know, this is something that you care about. You need to push for it, whether it's the best thing or not. And to give a kind of specific example, if you think about something that you're good at, or at least you're at a stage higher than some of your peers that you're around. I know specifically for skateboarding, for me, that I'm very much in the middle when it comes to going to, like, our parks and everything. But when some people will go up and say, like, you're good, you do this, that's crazy. It means very little to me. But on the other end, I'm much more irritated when someone who is below me will try and take apart someone else's skill. You don't do this good enough. Why can't you do this? Because all I'm thinking is, like, I know there's so many people here better than you that would just tell him to keep trying or to keep going for this or not be scared. Like,
I face the same thing. It's an ego.
Exactly. You're like, you don't have, like, even if you're the best at this, you shouldn't be doing this.
You're so concerned about being bruised.
You're a very small step ahead of this person, and just because you have that little foothold, you want to take them apart so you feel a little bit bigger.
Right.
When the people around you that are like at the peak of this for your specific area of expertise or wherever you are, and you're all doing the same thing, and you are extremely positive about this person who's new and is just trying, like, it's such a huge problem that gets under my skin. Like, you do you. It doesn't matter how good that is in whatever particular area. You should be able to make mistakes and not look the best and all this other stuff without anyone else coming over and trying to make you feel smaller. And usually those are the people that aren't at the top. In my experience, those people are very, like, genuinely good to beginners that aren't trying to make some sort of problem.
I've had the same experience too, and it's so funny because it's really just a matter of people feeling threatened. And it's a shame because you know that they're usually in it for something other than the purpose of the activity, like skateboarding.
Yep.
People that enjoy skateboarding are doing it because they get that sense of release and accomplishment from doing it. And then there's other people that do it for a status and for a look and also the edginess that comes from it. And so those are usually the people that aren't that great at it and are just trying to tear other people down because they're just not in the right headspace.
And so we'll get back to a much more positive area, but I think that it is inherently positive because you're saying face these things head on because they're going to happen. I don't think we should pretend like there's a world where it gets nice enough where you're not going to face adversity, and I don't think that there should be necessarily, because I know that a way that I felt like I've leveled up emotionally is being okay with someone trying to take me down and moving forwards anyway, because you get a much better, like, pat on the back feeling when you just power through and continue to do it, especially when you become better at it. That
your patience
everyone
pays
should
off.
feel. I feel like if you get taken down on something, you come back, you do better. Then as a person, you gain something from that.
I completely agree. You see it a lot in the horse industry too, because it's a matter of whoever can buy whatever horse for whatever level they want to be at. And so for someone like me who never owned a horse, it was basically like at the mercy of whether or not the horses would be sound or, ready to go at that level. And then I was learning at the same time. So there were people that were competing with me neck and neck, and then they would shoot up the ranks. And of course, it would take me a little while longer because I couldn't just go and buy the next level horse. I had to work with what I had. But then by the time I got to the same level, they were starting to crumble because all those years where I kept getting experience, they were still learning. And they're still learning. And then they're in a new level and they just don't have the time to actually gain the skills it takes to do those levels, to do those heights and jump those courses. And so they have some really scary falls, and then they're like, oh, it's the horse, we'll get you a new one. So then it just goes through the washing machine of find this person a horse that will just do the job. And you really realize that they're not in it because they like the aspect of working towards it and building the relationship with the horse and getting strong enough on your own. And so it's interesting how the different communities all kind of translate the same in that matter of this is my personal skill. It's I feel like it's a lot more common in one-on-one sports.
Sure.
Because it's like this is what I've worked for and nobody else can do it except for me in this moment right now. And so it's a very you have to be really confident in yourself to go and do it in front of people because that's it's just you.
Yeah. I think that's interesting that you see that no matter what you're in. I think that I mean, as skateboarders and in photography, you see this all the time where someone will come in and will have the money for the best thing, and you know, whether it's you or someone else, you observe it, them coming in at whatever level they can afford, and you start off as both beginners with maybe the person with the better thing, you know, looks, sounds, acts a little bit better. But if you follow that, it's always the person that has more drive for the thing and the love for the process that will always end up on the top. And we talked about this a ton in photography, and this is not my original idea, but it's something that I've heard a great deal because it's interesting because there's commerce behind it. Like your camera companies will always try and get you to spend the most money, even though it won't give you the best results as a beginner, or just because you don't know how to use the power of the camera to get these images. So you'll get like the camera box that will have images from professional photographers, from National Geographic to Professional Fashion and everything, and it's written vaguely enough that you think that it's just because of the technology in this camera.
Right.
Now on the other side, that professionals can get that, but there's so much more to go into it. So you can have someone that spends $10,000 on setting up their kit. You can have all the best lenses, both zoom and fixed focal length, and get a camera with a gigantic sensor. If you go for film, you get a whole bunch of crazy vintage stuff. And once you're past that, that's function. It's your tool. But how you use that and the finesse and the actual skill and craft you put into it, like you were mentioning on those jumps where you start to get sloppy, like the person that just has the drive to perfect the craft rather than relying on the most expensive instrument that they can afford, is really going to prevail. And I think it's interesting that you see that so often. I think it's in horseback riding. I think it's in skateboarding. I think it's photography. I think it's in fitness and weight loss, because you're drawn towards the quick fix. And it's like, if people that were in that mindset that didn't know could realize that it's actually just, you have to change the entire way that you're living, because even if this product was 100%, and we all know that it's not, but let's just say that it is, you have to, once you gain that momentum, you have to keep pushing forwards. That's why when people aren't on diets where it's just like, it's going to be this, and I'm going to lose this many pounds, and it'll be fine. No, like there's some things you have to cut out and add moderation, all this other stuff, because it's a complete mindset change. Exactly. And then you'll just continue to get healthier rather than going, and whether this is with skill and you get sloppy, or with fitness, you just stop trying for a while and you assume you can come back at the same level. I don't think that the god of craft of anything is like, no, you deserve a rest. Like, you'll come back to this as good as you were before. You're not. It doesn't work that way.
It doesn't work that way. You always have to nurture it. And it's something that even if you put it down, there are different ways that you can kind of keep watering that seed, if you will. Whether it's just taking a simple photograph like on your phone that you really composed well and thought about and appreciated, and you haven't gotten a chance to do like a real studio setup or whatever you've been thinking of for a while, like that little action is enough to keep you thinking about your goal, and where you want to be and what you aspire your craft to turn into. And it's just interesting that people don't do that, because they get so caught up in their routine that they're like, well, how do you have so much time for this? And it's like, because I made the time.
Yes.
Like, I decided that today I was going to put 30 minutes towards just drawing something, or that I was going to do this because it benefits me. Even if that means not spending as much time in a different situation.
I think that's absolutely correct. When people ask you where you find the time, we all have the same 24 hours. Like, I don't like going to the gym at 6 or 7 o'clock, but I do, because it's that time that I have space for that. I don't have, like, time is what you make of it. Fitness is a priority. Skateboarding is a priority. My artistic side is a priority. So even if it's just that hour, we all have to go out and either do the next big thing, which is our next step, or we continue on with the basics. It doesn't matter what it is, whatever your craft is, you've got to go out there and train. And it reminds me specifically of one of me and my friend's favorite skateboarders, Rodney Mullen. There's a documentary, I won't go on this long tangent, but they talk about him and how he was a legend. And one of my other favorites, Mike Vallely, said that he was someone who would actually go out at night and practice by himself, just the basics. And he's a legend. It has been since that, because not only was he gifted naturally, because he definitely was, but he spent long hours without trying to impress people, just training it because he had an actual love for it and not a love for the attention he got from it. It was very secondary. And I think that healthier relationship with your creativity takes you really far.
It really does, because then you can break down why you actually enjoy spending that much time doing it. And when you find that you're like nailing tricks or jumping bigger heights, it's like, yeah, the attention you get from other people patting you on the back is awesome. But when you really break it down and are only given one option, like, okay, I don't have much time to skate, the skate parks are closed, so I'm going to do it with my car lights on in the parking lot.
Yep.
And you just work on like ollies or like something really simple, and you just nail it like for 20 minutes every day.
Yep.
That's way more than the person that goes out and just shreds on the weekends and gets all the acknowledgement from everybody else, and then you figure out why you like it, and then nobody else can take that away from you.
Yeah, and I think on top of that, take the competition side away from it with the person who's good at it on the weekends. Maybe there is so skill and talent and people's abilities at the top end are not given out fairly. Life definitely gives advantages to some people. So taking that advantage away and again, kind of going at it from more of a craft point of view where your competition is yourself. The week before you practice this, last week, the week before, the month before, whatever. I think when you have a healthy relationship with that inner sense of progress is when you truly start to deeply enjoy it. I don't know if you've had this specific experience, but I know that for me, kind of turning it the opposite way is when I've stopped doing something because I knew that the only thing that I liked from it was either the way I liked being seen doing it, wearing it, being there, doing this, whatever, and just took it out of my life because I'm doing this for other people. I know I am. And it's not making me happy when I spend money on it, when I spend time on it, and you take that away and it's like a breath of fresh air. You're like, I respect myself a little bit now for taking that away because it was a very transparent way to get attention. And I shouldn't crave that, even though I think it's a very natural instinct.
Or whether it's attention or you've just found that you literally only do it, well, I guess that does turn back to attention. Whether it's just because other people are, not that you're seeking the praise necessarily, but other people are noticing it and you like that.
Yeah, you know that they notice.
You know that they notice. Yep. And so or if you're doing it for somebody else, like because,
approval. Absolutely.
Or like a friendship or whatever, because if you think about it and what you and your friends have in common, there are certain links that if those links were gone, there would be nothing else you could really relate to that person.
I agree.
And so there's certain relationships that you're like, well, I have to do this to keep all these people because if I don't, but once you break away from that and you completely remove the whole thing and figure out what you like to do, just like you're not valued by what you're good at.
I agree. And
I think that's kind of hard because in a sense we believe we are, but you're only, I vaguely thought about this last night, but it's just your skills don't define who you are. And so I think it's also important to nurture those friendships that you have nothing in common with that person except you just enjoy your time together.
Or the inverse, if that relationship is only based on that and they won't hang out with you outside of said activity or whatever,
right,
then taking that hit when you say I'm not doing that anymore and that person disappears, it's something that definitely hurts for a while, but when it goes away, I think that you learn that okay,
it was almost better.
It's so much better.
Yeah.
But the fear and the anxiety that you go through because deep down your intuition knows that if you didn't do this and that person would be going, and you spend that whole time lying to yourself. It's like, no, like if I tone this down, they'll still be here. Like it's definitely not just that one thing. It's not just going out to this club. It's not doing this thing on the weekends. It's whatever. It doesn't matter how healthy or unhealthy the activity is. If it's not you and you feel like you're wasting your time doing it, but it feels really painful when you try and back out of it, and you know that you're going to lose a person from it, you have to be able to kind of survive that, because it's a healthy thing to be able to cut that off and say, listen, I know you love this. I don't want to take anything away from it. It's just not for me. So and your conversation usually doesn't have to go past that, but kind of the subtext is, I hope that you're still in my life despite this, but I've got to cut it out of mine because it's not fulfilling me in whatever way.
Right. And that's when you figure out what their real intentions were. And sometimes it's hard to tell. Like you said, when you have such a big part of your identity attached to an action or something you're talented at, it's like, well, this is me.
Yeah.
So then they do like me. Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, sometimes that just isn't how it goes.
But it's like, that's in us, but it's also in... I think that it's in all of us, but I think it's also in some people's parents or family that kind of pushes that. But
completely agree. Like your first real relationships with people.
Yes, absolutely. But I think that we have an unhealthy relationship with it, because I think that the reason that we come towards that is either someone else is saying, you need to be good at this one thing because that's who you are, like make something of yourself.
Right.
In this particular field, like be known for it. But also I think that even people that don't have any kind of negative influence like that in their lives are using it as sort of a negative stimulation to kind of push themselves forward, like negative reinforcement, like, no, this is what you are. You got to get in there. You got to do it or you're worthless.
Right.
And it's definitely powerful. I won't say that it's not, because sometimes negative, like that negative energy, that I think it's very negative masculine energy, just be like, no, just get up and do this.
Yeah, sometimes it is a great motivator.
But I think that using it over and over, I think you need shots of it here and there maybe to keep you tough, because you should be able to handle that. But that constant negative voice of trying to drive you on by pain, I don't think is sustainable, because you become emotionally weary from it, and it becomes directly attached to that thing that should be positive for you.
Exactly. I completely agree. I don't really have much to add on that one.
Well, I'm glad that we had the conversation. It went in all kinds of different ways, but I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I appreciate you coming to our little apartment and sitting at this table that I've divided. And yeah. So there is a pot roast. So that's it. I hope everybody enjoyed. This was Part-Time Creative episode 1 with Lisi, and we'll be back next week. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for having me.